Good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for finding time to be with us today. The show is Diaspora Dispatches, where I get to bring us up to date with the latest news from across the continent of Africa. My name is Miriam Ogutu, and we do have so much to talk about this afternoon. We will start from Nigeria. And senators on Wednesday threatened to impeach the president, Muhammadu Buhari, over the worsening insecurity in the federal capital territory, Abuja, and the country at large. The angry senator, who is in the opposition, gave a president a 6-week ultimatum to address the security crisis or face impeachment proceedings. Opposition senators issued the ultimatum on Wednesday as fears over insecurity in Abuja worsened, with the government ordering schools to shut to prevent attacks by the terrorists. The presidency, in a statement by the president's spokesperson, Garba Shehu, described the action of the opposition senators as childish, advising them to put their time to a better use. The nation's capital had been gripped by fear following the attack by a suspected terrorist on the elite Presidential Guards Brigade by gunmen along Buhari Kubwa Road on Sunday, in which a captain, lieutenant and 6 soldiers were killed. 3 others were injured, and the personnel were on their way to the Buhari campus of the Nigerian Law School, which had received a threat when they were ambushed. Following this development, the security forces Tuesday deployed troops and policemen in strategic locations in the FCT, including helicopters and drones. The United Nations says it has no evidence so far that its peacekeepers fired at civilians during 3 days of protest against its forces in the Democratic Republic of Congo. 19 people have now been confirmed to have died in the violent clashes in multiple towns that targeted UN camps. They included 3 peacekeepers. Demonstrations erupted in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo on Monday, with people accusing the UN of failing to contain violence by armed groups. The UN Deputy Special Representative in Democratic Republic of Congo says investigators have already been sent to help the authorities analyze the bullets that killed the civilians in the towns of Goma and Butembo. Mr. Kassim Diagne said initial findings, however, showed that the United Nations peacekeepers exercised restraint as protesters stormed into their bases and burnt vehicles, offices, and looted food stores. Demonstrators have accused Congolese security forces of the killings. This comes even as the civilian death toll increases after 4 protesters were electrocuted on Wednesday in the city of Uvira when troops fired shots that hit an electric cable which fell onto them. And Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said Western countries are to blame for the soaring global food prices and fuel crisis while on a trip to Ethiopia. As part of a 6-day Africa tour, he met Ethiopian officials and representatives of diplomatic corps. In his remarks to diplomats on Wednesday, he said the problems with the international food market started at the beginning of the pandemic and predate the Ukraine war. He said Western governments use trillions of dollars to buy food without any substantial reason. Mr. Lavrov added that the increase of the price of fertilizers was caused from what he called the reckless Western policy of the so-called green transition, which he said discriminates the classic energy sources. Africa imports 40% of its wheat from Ukraine. However, that was disrupted because of the Russian-Ukraine war. And public university lecturers in Nigeria who are currently on strike over pay have called for a law to regulate the children of government officials from studying abroad. Children of many public officials have gone to university abroad, including the children of the current president and vice president. The Academic Staff Union of Universities has been on strike since 14th February, leaving many students in limbo. 2020 strike by public university lecturers lasted for nearly 9 months. And then we head over to Guinea-Bissau. Macron, the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, arrived on Wednesday evening in Guinea-Bissau for the first official visit of a French head of state to Western Africa. The French head of state was received at the Osvaldo Vieira Airport in the Guinean capital by his Guinean counterpart, Omaro Sissoko Embalo. After meeting with the President of the French Republic twice in Europe this year, this visit makes it the 3rd time they're meeting this year and the first time for Macron in Bissau. This business visit comes as Umaro Sissoco Embalo assumed on 3rd July the rotating presidency of the Economic Community of West African States for a year. President Macron's visit is highly anticipated as the streets were full of people chanting for his name and waving flags in a bid to express their delight and support in his visit. Very stupid. I'm yet to see people chanting and waving flags anywhere in the Western world when any of our leaders from the continent visit, but we accord them that kind of reception. I don't know what's wrong with us here in the continent, but anyway, they were chanting and waving flags, and I'm sure a lot of those flags must have been for France, I'm sure. Anyway, still staying with matters, Emmanuel Macron and the French president has strongly criticized African leaders' response to the Ukraine war during a press conference in Yaoundé. Mr. Macron hit out at the hypocrisy, particularly on the African continent, that denied the Ukraine conflict was a war. Some African countries have held back from outright criticizing Russia's aggression in Ukraine. In March, 17 African countries abstained in a UN vote to condemn the invasion. He also said that the only solution to Cameroon's Anglophone crisis is decentralization, and he insisted that it is through this political process of dialogue and reform that a lasting solution can be found. The privately owned Journal du Cameroon website was quoted as saying he was speaking alongside Cameroonian President Paul Biya in Yaoundé, and according to their website, the two leaders also discussed jihadist threats in northern Cameroon with Boko Haram and the conflict between the Cameroonian forces and armed separatist groups. And Somalia has denied siding with Egypt over Ethiopia in the dispute between the two countries over the Ethiopia's Grand Renaissance Dam built on the River Nile. In an interview with BBC Somali Service, presidential spokesperson Abdikarim Ali Khan said that presidents of Egypt and Somalia shared no official joint position on the construction and filling of the dam. Mr. Carr insisted that Somalia's position is to support international laws regulating the use of the Nile waters. His comments came after Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said he discussed with his Somalia counterpart Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud about the dangerous unilateral policies of Ethiopia on the use. Mr. Carr insisted that Somali leader did not speak on his country's position on the dam during the joint press conference with President Sisi in Cairo. And Zambia's former First Lady, Esther Lungu, was on Tuesday questioned over ownership claims of ultra-modern housing units in the capital Lusaka, local media have reported. The 15 flats near the state lodge were seized by the Drug Enforcement Commission earlier this month, suspected to have been proceeds of crime. The anti-money laundering agency summoned Mrs. Lungu after she claimed she owned the flats. She was accompanied by her husband, former President Edgar Lungu. The former First Family has been on the radar of Zambian investigative agencies in an anti-corruption campaign launched by President Hakainde Hichilema. Critics say the drive is politically motivated. The president, who came into power in August last year, has vowed to recover all allegedly looted resources by the Lungu regime. And how best to do that than to go for the First Family. Anyway, we conclude by news from Tunisia on the recently carried out a referendum, and the Electoral Commission in Tunisia says initial results from Monday's referendum shows that 94.6% voted in favor of the constitutional changes that grant more power to President Kais Saied. Official turnout was low, given the Commission as 28%. Opposition parties had boycotted a ballot that they had said would return Tunisia to autocracy. The opposition groups say the results were not legitimate. Mr. Said's political rivals accused the country's electoral board of fraud and said they would not recognize the newly approved constitution, which is expected to come into force when the final poll results are published. There are no immediate reaction from President Said or from the country's electoral commission to the accusations. And that is the latest there. So a couple of things I'd like for us to look at, and before we get into the issue of now Nigeria, the Senate, they're planning for to impeach the president. I don't know why they waited for long for somebody to even suggest this to the Senate. I'm not in support of removing a legitimate government. But if this government is not serving the interests of the people, then this government has no reason still staying in power. So this move by the Senate in Nigeria, and this Senate has been playing too much. There are a couple of issues to do with security that they've been handling in a manner that is so casual, as if this is not a big deal. And now I think they've had enough. So yesterday there was an impeachment threat. I don't know why this is still an impeachment threat, but they said that the opposition Senate, they said they want to impeach President Buhari because of the worsening security in the Federal Capital Territory. Are you going to impeach Buhari because now Abuja is threatened? Or are you going to impeach Buhari because a huge section of Nigeria has been living with great levels of insecurity? So now these senators, because I believe in Abuja, this is the capital, so this is where majority of them have businesses and have great homes and all that. So they feel now this threat has come closer home. So now they find a need to want to impeach the president because now they feel directly threatened because of that threat. And we will get to the details of that story and, of course, the response from the president. But first off, I need to vent out, this matter of French President Emmanuel Macron and calling African states hypocrites. And he hit out on African leaders because we did not take a stand, and side with either side. A lot of our countries, I know my country, Kenya, did not have a problem in calling out Russia for this aggression and this unnecessary war in Ukraine, and a few other countries, a handful of them across Africa. But even since then, Kenya itself has slowed down on that because what else can we do? Go fight Russia? We can't do that. And so the Western world has been just on our neck and insisting for Africa to take a position in this war that really has nothing to do with us. Yes, we are suffering from the effects and the impact of it, but why would we be in the middle of this? They have a long history of things that they need to sort out there in Europe and in the Western world. So as with all these problems that we're having, our children cannot even go to school in Nigeria, and now some of the schools are being shut because of insecurity, and we have to get ourselves into that war over there. There's nothing much we can do. What do they want us to do? What exactly does the Western world want Africa to do? We can speak our mind, we can condemn it. It is not, necessary that we have people dying and being uprooted from their homes in Ukraine. But how many people are being uprooted and killed in this continent, and we've not heard them speak with the level of, loudness that they are now speaking in Ukraine? And whatever is happening there, like I've said, it's not okay. It's not okay. The war is really unnecessary. But that is in the least of our problems here. And for the African countries who have come out and condemned the war, they have done it. And for those who have decided to remain neutral, they have taken that stand. And for those who have decided to support Russia, that is within their rights. And you can't come here, especially standing in Yaoundé in Cameroon, with a dictator who has been in power. When it comes to next month, I think Paul Biya would have been president of Cameroon for 40 years. Standing beside Paul Biya, and you have the audacity to call us hypocrites because we're not supporting the war in Ukraine. President Macron, you get out of here with that, because you don't have the moral authority to tell us that. If your country was pro-democracy, was pro-life, was pro-good governance, you wouldn't set foot in Cameroon because of what has been happening in Cameroon. But no, you choose and pick how you want to look at some of these issues that happen, especially in the continent of Africa. So President Macron strongly criticized African leaders' response to the Ukraine war during a press conference in Yaoundé. I wish he was speaking from a different platform. Maybe I would have the ear to listen to him. In Yaoundé, I don't think so. So Mr. Macron hit out at the hypocrisy, particularly on the African continent, that denied the Ukraine conflict was a war. And some African countries have held back from outright criticizing Russia's aggression in Ukraine. On March 17th, African countries abstained in a UN vote to condemn the invasion. And he was speaking. He also said the only solution to Cameroon's Anglophone crisis is decentralization. Okay, so we know the Anglophones have been calling for a referendum the same way Biafrans have been calling for a referendum to secede from Nigeria, the same way Anglophones have been calling for a referendum to have their own country and form their own country. I think the called Ambazonia. They even have a name for it. Okay. And so, and that name and that history of that part of Cameroon just dates back to a couple of years ago. So it's not a new thing. And there's a point in time in the history of that country that was a place on its own. So he's speaking and his solution to the Anglophone crisis, and we know how much that region has suffered under Paul Biya. We know how much these people have suffered under Paul Biya, and the crisis has claimed so many lives, and atrocities have really happened there. And a lot of these atrocities have been perpetrated by the government itself. The secessionists also have a stake in this conflict, and the heinous acts. They've also been accused of participating, so both sides. But majority of that has come from the government, the terrorizing of the people, the raping of the women, the burning of schools, the burning of churches. That has happened, and there are numerous reports that have cited the soldiers in Cameroon, and even the soldiers himself, the Cameroon government itself, has acknowledged this. So for Emmanuel Macron now to go to a place like Cameroon that has no respect for human rights, that has no respect for good governance, for heaven's sakes, Paul Biya has been in power for almost 40 years. Does it know anything to do with democracy? Does it know anything to do with good governance? But you want to stand before him in your own day and call us hypocrites and call the leadership in this continent hypocrites. You get out of here with that. It doesn't work like that, Mr. Macron. You don't choose and pick what you feel a model of democracy is working, as long as it is serving your interest. And of course, Cameroon is having a lot of interest, the French interest. So, the issue of democracy and good governance, that is not something they bring to the table when they're approaching a leader like Paul Biya, who has been in power for the longest time. And you look at some of these countries that Macron is visiting. So I think he's, by him calling African leaders hypocritical, I think himself, it's not even proper grammar, but standing next to Paul Biya, he comes off as the greatest hypocrite you could ever think about from Europe, okay? And has the audacity to tell us what we are supposed to do and how we are supposed to work out with our allies and who's supposed to be our allies. And he's calling us hypocrites. But he has no problem standing with somebody who has run down the economy, ruined the economy of Cameroon, a person who came to power through the gun. He overthrew his uncle, I think killed him even, Paul Biya. He's been president. He has refused to leave. There's no democracy in Cameroon. There's no good governance in Cameroon. There's no history of proper human rights. Record there is very poor. But Macron does not have a problem going there and visiting him and working on improving on their diplomatic ties, and then has the audacity to stand next to that person, Paul Biya, and call the rest of the majority of the leadership in this continent as hypocrites. Macron, President Macron, with all due respect, sir, you don't have the moral authority to even lecture us how we need to run our democracy or how we need to run our countries in this continent. We are independent countries, and every country, according to their own foreign policy, which goes to serve the interest of the citizens and the country in each of us here in the continent, have a right to reach out and make allies and talk to whomever they want to out there, whichever country they feel will best serve their interest economically, diplomatically, and whichever way you look at it, then that's what we do. Africa is not one country. We are different countries with different leaders. We have the worst, but we also have others who are doing their best to serve their people. Okay? So we are a whole spectrum. So you can't talk to us as if you're lecturing, just a section of your what do you call it? We are not your colonies. I know for France it has been very difficult for them to just even leave, their former colonies, and that's why you find Macron walking in these countries, their former colonies, because they still have a lot of interest there, and these colonies are still really serving the interests of France. But for him to call the African leaders hypocrites, standing next to Paul Biya, he's the biggest hypocrite, and I don't think that was good on his part, and I don't know how the rest of African leaders are feeling about it, and I don't know why they're not even responding and telling Macron to just be quiet and go back to France. We have enough problems to deal with in this continent, and I think we can manage our own affairs. Thank you very much, sir. I think. All right, so I've vented that out. So now let's get back to the issue of Nigeria. Okay, I just needed to say what I've said. All right, so there has been, before we get to the issue of insecurity and how lackluster that has been handled and the response from the government itself, President Buhari could be facing an impeachment. Opposition senators brought that into the floor of Senate yesterday. So I will get into the story shortly. But there has been a strike for the universities, public universities in Nigeria. And this strike has gone on for a very long time. Can you imagine? So now, yesterday, there was a protest, and public university lecturers in Nigeria who are currently on strike want some law to regulate who can go, the children of government officials studying abroad. And when I was reading through this story, I do agree with them to some very good they're making a lot of sense, because that situation is not just in Nigeria, but it is replicated across the continent. When it comes to public institutions, you find that our leaders don't want to invest in these institutions, don't want to improve on them, don't want to make them hospitable for the many of us, citizens who use these public institutions, be it healthcare, be it education, public education. That is a problem across board. So this is what they're saying, that the children of many public officials have gone to university abroad, including the children of the current president and vice president. So while the rest of Nigerian students cannot go to school because the teachers there are on strike, and the government has not bothered to do much. I think they've been on strike now for 6 months, and the government has not bothered to do much to address these issues. And that is because their children do not go to these public schools. Their children do not even go to schools in Nigeria. Their children go to study abroad. Okay, so you can sit there and your kids can continue suffering while their kids are continuing with their lives and are bettering themselves out there in different schools abroad. So this is what they said, and I'll quote the chairman of the University of Niger Delta. His name is Wilberforce. So he said, if this is done, it will build a better society for developing formidable education institutions and improve funding of the university system in Nigeria. If the rich and poor go to the same university or institution, I don't think the strike will occur again. That's what he said. If they school here and their children are here, they will show total support for the university system and tertiary institutions in Nigeria. So what this person is essentially saying, his name is Kingdom Tombra, the chairman of the University of Niger Delta, Wilberforce Island chapter of the Lecturers Union. He's the chairman of that union. So he's saying the reason why we continue having these problems in the public institutions, especially the education system in Nigeria, and a lot of these issues are not even addressed, is because a lot of these leaders and these politicians, their children don't go through the public education system because their parents can afford to take them to private school, a good private school, and then afterwards take them out of the country to go study for their higher education. So they really don't care. They really don't care. So they're saying there should be a law put in place that all public servants should have their children studying in the country. I think that's a good law, except I don't think it will be passed because it will have to go through Parliament and Senate, and those thugs, they're the ones who are supposed to pass that law. They will not do it. They will not do it. And like with the coming of COVID-19, the Africa healthcare system underbelly was really exposed because now even these rich people who could afford to go abroad to seek medical treatment, they could not go because nobody was traveling. So they were forced to go to these dilapidated health institutions that they don't care to give enough funding or to improve on the quality there. So perhaps that was supposed to be an eye-opener to a lot of our leaders to see how they can improve some of these very important and vital public institutions that serve the larger group of the citizens who can't afford the option of going to a private hospital or a private school or things like that. So this is a good suggestion, except I don't think this is something that will go through. That public officials, kids must study in Nigeria and not leave the country. I don't think that is something they will vote for, and I don't see this as a law that they will pass. Remember, it is them who have to pass this law. And even as we speak, the current children of the president of Nigeria and the vice president, they study abroad. So you tell me if President Buhari will append to that law. I don't think so. So maybe not. Maybe the coming government. So let's now talk about the looming impeachment of President Buhari. So on Wednesday, it was a showdown in the Senate there in Nigeria. And there was a threat to impeach President Muhammadu Buhari over the worsening insecurity in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, and the country at large. The angry senators who were in the opposition gave the president 6-week ultimatum to address the security crisis or face impeachment proceedings. Really? Okay. So opposition senators issued the ultimatum on Wednesday as fears over insecurity in Abuja worsened, with the government ordering schools to shut to prevent attacks by terrorists. The presidency, in a statement, but the president's spokesperson Garba Shehu described the action of the opposition senators as childish, advising them to put their time to better use. Now, let me just put a pause right there. So the president's spokesperson said, you wanting to impeach President Buhari because of the worsening insecurity in Nigeria is childish. Instead, put that energy in better use. Okay, so obviously security is not a priority for the Buhari's regime, because this is what they're supposed to be doing. The issue of security is a matter of national interest and international interest for that reason. And so for the president's office to respond in this way and calling these threats childish goes to show you the kind of a callous attitude this administration has been having when it comes to matters security in the country. So it is no wonder that things have gotten worse in Nigeria as far as insecurity is concerned. The nation's capital has been gripped by fear following the attack by suspected terrorists on the elite Presidential Guards Brigade by gunmen along the Buhari-Kubwa Road on Sunday, in which a captain, a lieutenant, and 6 soldiers were killed. 3 others were injured, and the personnel were on their way to the Buhari campus of the Nigeria Law School, which had received a threat when they were ambushed. Okay? So following this development, the security forces on Tuesday deployed troops and policemen in strategic locations in the FCT, including the helicopters and drones. And of course, let me just read a bit of the latest on that. And similarly, a leaked memo from the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps indicating that Boko Haram and Islamic State West African province terrorists were amassing dangerous weapons for massive attacks on Katsina, Lagos, FCT, Kaduna, Zamfara states, created further fear in Abuja. So they are very trusted intelligence report that shows that Boko Haram is planning to attack massive attacks on these states that I've mentioned to you: Katsina, Lagos, FCT, Kaduna, and Zamfara states, okay? And so that has created fear in Abuja, the capital. And tensions has, however, increased in the city as messages circulated on social media that the terrorists were planning to attack some estates in Gwarimpa, Lokogoma, Maitama, Apo, and other highbrow areas. Security guards and residents of estates in the area expressed concern over the poor security in Abuja, saying the government must do something about it. Private security guards at some estates confided with local media that they are worried about these signs, saying the residents were scared of possible terror attacks. And so that is it. So essentially, people are living in perennial fear in now the capital in Nigeria and other localities in Nigeria, and indeed across a huge part of the country. But and now that has caused this threat to want to impeach President Buhari. But you know, the government spokesperson has described this action of wanting to impeach the president as childish, and just telling the senators to get better things to do with their time. So I don't know if that was the right response. Of course, it's not from the president's office, because when the president's spokesperson is speaking, that would be Buhari speaking, yeah? Because I don't think he would say something that Buhari wouldn't say. And if he said that and Buhari has not responded to, correct that, then we assume that is how the president views this situation. The issue of insecurity in Nigeria, I think we talk about it here every day. And when you look at even some information coming from there, I was watching a documentary highlighting the same in Zamfara state. And now it has become, and these are not even cases that has to do with the Boko Haram. It is it's focused on the banditry and how that network works, and some of the reasons that forms the basis of why these people do what they do. And I think also it is a sectarian war of some sort. I think the Fulanis and the Hausas, I think there's some kind of bad blood that has been brought about because the Hausas, the farmers, and the Fulanis are pastoralists, and they have their animals, and sometimes they used to force their way into when they want to feed their animals into the farmers gardens and all that. So that became something else. But now that has morphed into a completely different thing. And so the houses are feeling they're being targeted by the Fulanis. And the Fulanis are also feeling they're being targeted by the other side. So you'll find that if there's a village or a center where one tribe is predominant, then the other one lives in perennial fear, because there are very high possibilities that the predominant community there will attack you, because you're seen as not a good person. And that has led to suffering of so many Fulanis and suffering of so many innocent houses. So this war has taken in a very different facet. And also, just one of the kidnappers that kidnapped, a recent kidnapping happened in a girls' school, and they took a good number of them. The ransom for the kidnapping for ransom, that is a lucrative business right now. And one of the people who was part of the kidnappers, said the reason why they carry out these kidnappings, one, is to embarrass. Yeah, and he was from, is it the Fulani side? Yeah, and he said it is to embarrass the government of Nigeria, because when you hear news like this, the next thing you know is you're wondering, why is even President Buhari in power? So they do this to embarrass the government and to get back at the government, because maybe the government sent security forces to them and a few of them were killed or things like that. So it has taken a different turn. And then you add to the threat of Boko Haram now that threatens now the whole country. I think things are slowly but surely. I don't know if at this point it is slowly, because I think things have really escalated to levels that should worry the rest of us in Nigeria, the rest of us, even here in the continent in Africa. Things in Nigeria are not going on well. The things that are going on in Nigeria are not okay, and they're tantamount to human rights abuses. And I don't know who we are going to ask to bring things in order. If President Buhari now, even the threat of impeaching him, he's not even worried. Instead, he's calling this childish, but he's not saying what the government is doing. He's not offering solutions. He's not giving solutions, and he's not stating clearly what the government will do to help alleviate, these threats to the people of Nigeria. So it is a very precarious situation, I think, at this point. So things are not well, and something has to be done. So I don't know if the opposition senators have given Buhari 6 weeks. Of course, he said that is childish, and they're demanding for him to address the security crisis or face impeachment proceedings. I don't know if they will live up to these threats. I don't know if Buhari will care to address the issue of insecurity. He has attempted to have meetings before with security operators in the country, the different people in the positions that are supposed to be addressing this matter. Those meetings have not borne any fruits. I don't know if this time it will be different. At this point, I think President Buhari is just waiting to retire. He does not even care what happens. So if he's that tired, then he needs to step aside. He needs to step aside. Now, if schools are being closed, there are schools that have been closed around, even in Abuja, I believe, and across the country. When I was watching that documentary, that school that those girls were abducted from, it's never been opened. And you can imagine it had a good amount of students attending that school. So now what happens to them? We will have a generation that has continued not to get education, and people like this, and a majority of them comes from particular communities in Nigeria. They're not known to go to school well. And so when we have these generations that will not get a chance to go to school and be enlightened, how are we going to break the cycle of this kind of madness? Okay? Education somehow opens your mind to looking at things differently, and not just narrow-mindedly. So if we deny these people an opportunity to see a different and think differently, then this is not going to stop. This is not going to stop, and the criminal activities will continue. So I will be waiting to see if the senators will live to that threat, and if at all President Buhari will address the issue of insecurity, the rising insecurity in Nigeria. But your guess is as good as mine. Maybe not so much. The issue of the Democratic Republic of Congo peacekeepers were attacked in Democratic Republic of Congo because the residents there are feeling you're only here, you're getting your allowances from the UN, and you're not doing much to help us. Even with your heavy presence in this part, you're still getting attacked. So the residents there got tired and went to the camps of the UN peacekeepers and protested and were very violent. So these people had to sort of defend themselves, and in the process, a few people were killed. And it's another sad story here in the continent of Africa. The issues of the Democratic Republic of Congo are very intricate. I will not even get into the details of that right now, but perhaps we'll have this conversation maybe later or another time. So thank you so much for watching. This has been Diaspora Dispatches. My name is Miriam Ogoto. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.